Woohoo! This is an exciting lesson because we get to do our final product selection. Yay! Now, there are a lot of variables leading up to this point, right? We have demand, competition, the ability to improve, the cost of the goods, ability to find a factor that's easy to work with, the profitability, the seasonality. And these are all the things that we're going to take into account when we choose our final product selection. Now, when we were first doing our product selection, we were mainly looking at demand, competition, ballpark, whether or not we had good margins, but we didn't yet know if we were going to be able to find a high quality factory to make it. And we also didn't know our final numbers to know whether or not it was going to be profitable. So that's what we're going to do now. I'm going to do this example for the yard sign since those are the ones we ordered the samples with, but a lot of you guys may still have 2 or 3 different products you're trying to decide between, and this would be the time and place to do so. Before I make my final decision, I like to do a final check for things like seasonality. My favorite place to do that is in Keyword Scout or inside of Opportunity Finder. What I can do is I can check the seasonal search volume. It looks like we are kind of like in the lower point of the year around fall time and winter time, and then spring, summer, and early fall are the high points. That would kind of make sense when people do yard sales and things like that. I also like to go into the product tracker, see how the products have been selling for the past few weeks or since I started looking at these. To find that, just go ahead and click into any of these and you can see what the daily sales have been like since you've been tracking these. The other things that I like to do or one of the most important things that I then like to do is determine the final profitability. So you remember we saw this particular graph before, but before we didn't know some of the final numbers, okay? So I can now enter a real FOB price, and I'm going to get that out of my supplier tracker. Now, unfortunately, that one price that was really low, we were looking at it, it was like $1.75 or $2 or whatever it was. That wasn't true. However, that was the factory that was able to develop or give us the best price, and that happens to also be the sample that I like the best. So our unit cost for this particular product will be $4.45 FOB, and then I'm actually able to get better pricing if I choose to order more units. So for the first order, I'll probably just do 500 units, but in the future, it's nice that I can drive that down even further by purchasing more units at once. So I'm gonna go into my calculator. My estimated sales price is $19.99. I entered my FOB price. In order to get my real freight cost, I'll go through this with you guys one more time. I'm using Freightos to do so. Freightos and FlexPoint, they're the 2 freight forwarders that I recommend. Freightos actually isn't a freight forwarder, but instead a place that you go to search through freight forwarders. And I entered the number of units, the dimensions, and the weight of the units. My supplier is going to be the one labeling my boxes. And I want my freight forwarder to palletize the boxes and ship them into Amazon. So I entered the port where my goods would be leaving from. I entered the warehouse that Amazon assigned to me, and I'll show you in the next module some more details of how to figure that out. I want them to perform the customs clearance, and I already have a customs bond. If you don't know what a customs bond is, let's see. Let me see. Here we go. There's 2 different types of customs bonds. One is it's good for one time, and it costs $75. Okay, and the other one, it costs $500, but it lasts an entire year for as many shipments as you want. So essentially, if you're only doing a few shipments per year, you could pay $75 each. I have the $500 one, which gets me as many as I want per year, so I'll be using that. So no, I don't need one of those. None of those are true. So I'm gonna go ahead and search and book this. And this is getting real quotes from different freight forwarders right now. So the cheapest one is, it looks like there's a few still loading. The cheapest one's gonna be this one, all right? And I'll show you the cost breakdown. So essentially it's $150 for them to do the paperwork and whatever else at the port. Then to ship it from from the port in China all the way into Amazon's distribution centers, they charge $1,059, and those are all the line items. And then they charge me $50 to do the customs clearance for me. So this is my total, $1,260, which if I divide that by 500 units, I have $2.52 per unit, and that's the price that I entered right there. Now, I'm not shipping this differently once it gets to the US. The quote that I received there is from the port in China all the way to the Amazon's distribution center, so I keep the next one at 0. Then I want to determine the duties. I'll include this link. It's a Freightos duty calculator. And it looks like this. So I'm importing from the US into China. Now, in order to get an accurate HS code, what I recommend is that you go into the supplier database and you find the HS code from someone who's already using it. So I'm going to do yard signs. Metal yard signs. Is that one? Let's see what else we have. Wooden yard signs. Custom dog yard signs. I'm looking through this to see if a lot of them use the same HS code. And to be honest, quite a few of them are actually different. Let's try this one to start with, metal yard signs, and see what happens. So, browse HS codes. Can I search by this? All right, so this H code is 940, so it starts with 94. Then it's 94, and it's 0560, illuminated signs, nameplates, and the like. Base metal, maybe. All right. But the good thing is it says this particular one, if I were to use this HS code, it would be exempt from import duties. So there's no additional duties or taxes on this particular HS code. So probably be a pretty good one to use. But at the end of the day, you need to use one that accurately describes your product. So I might be able to find one that accurately describes my product. If not, it does look like people are using this particular one to import their goods. So the good news there is my duties are $0. So my landed cost is $6.97. So it costs $6.97 to get it into Amazon. I'm going to keep my PPC fees at 5%. And then my FBA fees, let's figure those out. So to do that, it's usually not this difficult because usually there's a product just like yours on Amazon. But in our particular situation, this is a little bit different because remember, we're making ours a little bit smaller so that we don't have to pay the oversized fees for our product. This one's still loading. Actually refresh this. So what I'm going to do is, I'm not sure why this isn't showing up for me. Let me actually try something, yard sign with stakes. I'm going to try that actually. All right. Filter the results. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to use Jungle Scout's fee calculator, but the challenging thing here is, remember, I want something that is close to it, but is standard size, not over. So I'm going to check standard. I'm going to say, let's say 1 to 3 pounds. And yeah, that's good enough. So let's see. This one actually here is pretty close. It's standard size. It's in the right category. Dimensions are actually fairly close, and so is the weight. So this will get me pretty close. So what I can do here is I can take the FBA fees after I enter my price. So FBA fees are going to be $7.18. So go in here, $7.18. So that means my profit would be $4.84 and my return on investment 69%. So overall, that's pretty good. You know, if you factor in, it's like, what would our overall margin be? That would be our profit divided by our sales price. So 24% for my business, that's right around average. My business runs, but most of my products are between 20 and 25%, and the ROI is pretty good. So for me, this is good enough that I'd want to move forward with it. It's also nice to know that in the future, I do have the ability to make this a little bit better margins, because I do have the ability to get better pricing when I want to order more units. All right, so that's how I determine the final, or I do like essentially my final calculations as far as profitability is concerned. And after that, that's really how I make my final decision. I guess that's kind of like the last step for me, how I'm going to make that final decision. So you want to make sure that the demand, competition is still what you expect. Make sure that you like your factory and you think they're going to provide a quality product for a decent price. Make sure the profitability is at a level that you feel comfortable with. And once you've checked all these things, that's when it's time to create a purchase order, which I'll show you how to do in the next lesson.